People's Platform.
Good evening and welcome to the show. Now, it is common knowledge that the microfinance sector is plagued by extortive practices, threats, soliciting bribes, sexual bribes, intimidation, harassment, extortive interest rates. Ultimately, it is the rural poor that must bear the brunt of it all. Tonight's topic will focus on the microfinance debt trap and the rural poor. Joining me after a 3-year hiatus is my guest tonight, Mr. Chandra Jayaratne, good governance activist and former chairperson, Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Jayaratne.
Thank you for inviting.
Absolutely. Mr. Jayaratne, earlier this month, the Microfinance and Credit Regulatory Authority Bill was placed on the order paper of Parliament. Now, recently we also saw that Transparency International Sri Lanka filed a petition before the Supreme Court challenging the bill, saying inter alia that the bill fails to regulate all entities that engage in the microfinance activities, specifically with regard to those entities that are powerful, that dominate the industry, also making a point that the loan sharks or the polimudalali don't get caught by the provisions of this bill. So this was just one concern. If we could just break down for the benefit of our viewers the need for a microfinance act, because we already had one. So this bill attempts to repeal the earlier act and then bring in a new framework. So speak to us about why there is such a need to have a new statute in place.
A new framework was supposed to be brought under the Gotabaya Rajapaksa regime. They had an act ready, but for whatever reasons it didn't come to pass. But the basic problem is this bill, if you take it. What's our real problem? Problem is those who really suffer, as you described very clearly. Even in international studies and research shows all of what you're saying as having happened in Sri Lanka. And it also goes on to say that 200 women have committed suicide or taken their lives out. And we also know a family where a mother who gave poison to the 3 children and took poison, but thankfully they were saved off by the hospital authorities.
Okay.
But ended up being charged by the police for trying to take off their life, and the children were separated. So I think some ladies, including my wife, has been supporting these people so long.
Sure.
And also there have been very good lawyers who have appeared and got them back into society with the children all brought together. So that's the kind of things that are happening. Now, that's the level. Why did they get into this? Because they are, as you rightly said, duped most of the time. And this bill too leaves the real victims of microfinance out of its real focus. If you take the first 5 chapters of the bill, it all talks about the authority that's been established. It also talks about the administration, how it's going to be done, what its objectives are, and also all the legal and regulatory side of things. But only chapter 8 really focuses on the real problem.
Right.
So I think this is a totally misplaced bill in the context of you have a problem, you're trying to solve not the problem but the surrounding administration issues. Now, through that we are missing a lot because this definition here is quite good. It talks about who's a money lender and what is money lending business. But when it comes into the body of the report, it targets only those who are licensed. Now, all the control in the bill is towards those who are licensed. It says those who are not licensed are illegal. But it doesn't directly say that if you carry out any illegal business, then it's an offense and you will be punished. If you find a money shark or a loan shark, as you call them, they are not targeted for punishment. I mean, I'm not talking the punishment here. To me, the focus should have been to look at the human side of this, the consumer side of it, and see the practices that goes on and the level of awareness and knowledge that they have. There is one small section about they will open branches for counseling. I hope it happens, but that's only just one section of the bill only talks about that. So I get the feeling that this has been a totally misplaced bill for the developed by people who don't really understand the problem. And unfortunately, this has not been discussed publicly. So these are the real concerns that are there in this bill at the moment.
Because ultimately, it's the poor, the vulnerable and the marginalized groups in our society who will be negatively impacted by these short-sighted pieces of legislation if they are enacted.
It is so, it's not, but the thing is that regrettably, and there's another element.
Okay.
Whilst these microfinance people are doing something wrong, the business community is also using them to market and distribute their products. Now what they do is they get hold of these microfinance people, give them significant discounts to price, and they go down and tell the people a story. You can have this thing, new putu set for your house or a new TV set for you, and then they trap them in, and 6 months down the line they are in debt. They are unable to purchase. The commission agents who are used to sell these products only look at their commission. They find the wrong people who cannot afford to maintain a loan. And then what happens is ultimately after about 4 to 6 months of paying, the goods are taken back. So this is the kind of, now that element has been totally missing in this focus.
Mr. Jayaratne, if we take the genesis of this concept of microfinance, correct me if I'm wrong, Professor Muhammad Yunus came up with it, for which he won a Nobel Peace Prize. So it had its origins in a very good cause where rural poor who couldn't afford to go to banks or financial institutions to get loans with collateral or didn't have credit worthiness could take these micro loans and start a business or do whatever, right? But this has been now warped into a whole other thing, right?
Absolutely right. And I think that's really why I said they didn't understand. What you are talking about, what happened in Muhammad Yunus's case, was that he had a structure to deliver these things. There were people who were going to, I mean, I'll take the wrong example, maybe like the tobacco industry, they get farmers to do it, but they select the right farmers, give them the right technology, hold their hands, give them the supply materials and then take it. So what should have been done? If rural poor are put in, they should be targeted towards making their livelihoods better and their lifestyles better, savings better. That should have been the real focus. You give a loan only as a facilitator for them to use their entrepreneurship, use their skills, use their labor and do something for the family. And now that element is not there. Here what is happening is you're dispensing money, right?
Yeah. Let's also talk a bit about one of the other more problematic provisions. This bill grants the sole discretion to the subject minister to allow unlicensed money lenders. So equality, certainty of law, non-discrimination just go out of the window. So the minister can decide who can be a money lender effectively.
That's one part. then there's a second part to it,
Okay.
that he can also decide what is an instrument or what is a lending to define any instrument or any action. As he has two, he can select the categories to come under the bill.
Okay.
He can also decide the type of activities that will come under.
Yeah.
So therefore it's double discretion given to somebody, again, who will not really know the problem, trying to handle it. Now the issue here is that still the money sharks or the loan sharks you were talking about might also have there's a loophole here.
Okay.
They say that if it's a one-off transaction, now what is called the Atamaru thing is exempt. Now if somebody can go and say, all I'm doing is Atamaru, right? My wife did this, my proxy did this, each one is, so this law is not going to really work because it has not been thought through well enough. Then also definitions are quite weak, that you will, if somebody has done something wrong, there is enough of opportunity to get out of it. And the third and the most dangerous thing in this bill is that the really current methods of distribution of microfinance is left out, because this can be microfinance licenses can have to be a company, a partnership, or a society, or a registered NGO kind of situation, or a cooperative. But those individuals who will do this, now I recollect a case where I pursued some investigations where a person rings on the telephone, puts an advertisement, up to 30,000 rupees, no credit, no reference, you can come and meet us.
Right.
Ring this number. When you ring it, they say, yes, who are you, what are you doing? Come meet us under the Kalani Bridge, under the Kalani Bridge. Now this was, I think there was in the newspapers articles written about under the Kalani Bridge, the finance. Now there when you go, they take you over, take the details, and then the rest of what you said happens. So that will go that way. So the telecommunications, advertising, social media, electronic distribution, all that is left out of this bill. Now when it's been pointed out, the minister says, okay, there has to be another bill to extend it. So it goes on to me, the biggest issue here is not only this, but our whole legislative process seems to be faulty. Because somebody comes up with an idea, there is a problem, or somebody said, let's have an act. So then the cabinet decides, go ahead and form an act. Secretary then writes what should be done to the legal Attorney General's department. Legal draftsman drafts something, then it comes back. Cabinet doesn't understand the real problem. They pass it, comes to without any review to the parliament. Parliamentarians don't understand this, and we don't have the system of where parliamentarians really debate the issues, like in New Zealand, where in committee stage is not what is happening like in Sri Lanka. Professionals, knowledgeable people, civil society come in and argue the points in the committee stage to see what changes are necessary. Now, and then it becomes law. So I think this is one more of those bad legislative processes, non-transparent processes, which are, I think, economic freedom should be there, supported by transparent processes, so as you understand. So that's one of the bigger issues of this particular bill.
All right, thank you. We are in conversation with Mr. Chandra Jayaratne. We're going for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The People's Platform.
Unexpected gusts lead to paratrooper entanglement during Independence Day rehearsal. 4 paratroopers injured. Police fire water cannons and tear gas at Samagi Janabalawegir protest. Incumbent government will be sent home following a ballot, says opposition leader. 130 organizations request Speaker to hold off on signing the online safety bill until court observations are included in it. Activist Piat Nikeshala remanded until tomorrow. No fines for delayed tax identification number registrations.
The People's Platform.
Welcome back to the show. We're in discussion with Mr. Chandra Jayaratne, and we're discussing the Microfinance and Credit Regulatory Authority Bill, which was recently placed on the order paper of Parliament. For the benefit of our viewers, in its preamble, the bill says to regulate money lending businesses and the microfinancing businesses, to provide protection for customers of money lending business and microfinance business, to establish Microfinance and Credit Regulatory Authority, and to repeal the 2016 Microfinance Act. Mr. Jayaratne, we discussed how problematic some of the main provisions of the bill are. Could you detail some of the more human issues faced by vulnerable segments of society who get duped into these webs of microfinance loans?
Yeah, especially the category who gets majority are women, regrettably. And what happens is a salesperson comes and tells them, you know, why don't you start a new business? They give and say, or why don't you take it and buy something that, and so they are enticed. Now there is no selection for persons in need. Now that is the difference between what happened in the Yunus case. They identified people with capacity to use a loan, capacity to pay the loan back, and the capacity to benefit out of really managing that money correctly.
Right.
Here, money is given. Now, it's totally non-transparent. Now, of course, the bill says that it has to be in all 3 languages. It has to be, you know, what is being signed must be explained and all that. But this never happens. The money is given, then you are signed up. But in the signing up, what happens is the chap says, okay, sales cost is, you know, he collects the commission from upfront. Then he says, your insurance, you're going to pay this over 2 years, we have to insure your life. So he takes another part. Then he says, right, breakages, so if you're given something, we need a deposit. So all this is added to the loan, and the way they present it, they'll say, you know, you have to pay so much rupees. Now, working this out in about 10 or 20 cases that we did for one of the international banks here, we found that the rates were anything between 60 to 220%. Now, one particular large entity, taking everything into their methodology of calculation and showing what their real yield is not what is applied. Because on top of it, everything else is added. You don't get the money that you have signed up for, and once it happens, what you are paying back, really the way they are, way this one entity had worked, a very successful entity, we found that really they was treating all the money coming back to them. They would say, let's say they were charging 40%, but what you pay back, they treat it as a deposit with them at 14% or whatever. And only at the completion of the loan will they do the set off. So you are not only paying 40% at one end, the payments you are paying back, you are paying back on a loan which is higher than what you have really got into hand, and then when you are at the end of it, you are only getting for what you have paid a deposit rate that they have. So they really are extracting money from you to lend to the other customer at 14% they get, they'll give it to. So their capital that they are putting in is not their capital, it is the capital of the vulnerable lady who has given them their capital to continue in business. So this is the kind of thing. So you need very specifically, in the Yunus case, there was marketing. If they were doing something, there was a market. There was a marketing opportunity. There were people ready to buy. None of those things are in this particular offer. So really, it is a question of harassment. Once you start, you defer for 1 or 2 months. There is no assessment of your capacity to pay back.
The creditworthiness.
Creditworthiness or your project worthiness, none of those things are done. So I think this is more suited to be done really by a cooperative. And I think very successful ones are happening.
Okay.
If you take in the northern area,
Right.
northern cooperatives work exactly on this basis. They provide the services, they provide the background, they give all the information, they get you, they supervise you when you're wrong, they tell you, then they help you if you are in trouble.
Right.
Cross guarantee between 2 or 3 people is all that they are asking for.
Okay.
So to me, that system must be first thought of. You must establish the system. Very successful microfinance entrepreneurship is happening in. If anybody wants to study, you should go to the north and find what the cooperatives are doing.
Right. Mr. Jayaratne, let's also talk about the positive aspects, or some of the positive aspects of the bill. It speaks about a customer protection framework. It speaks about the need for this authority to establish a complaint handling mechanism, conduct financial literacy programs for the public, protect customers. So there are some positive aspects as well, but what you're saying is that the bill doesn't resolve the issues that are actually faced by the vulnerable communities who are duped into microfinancing.
Yeah, the thing is, all this, if it happens, they must need it at the time that they are borrowing. Once they are in, if there's a complaint. Now, can you imagine centrally driven, there will be a number of people employed, there will be maybe number of branches. Are they competent to go and talk to them? Are they of this? Biggest issue, I think, is you need attitudes and values. That is where the difference comes in. People who are committed in a cooperative who's developed that technology, they are with the people, working for the people. Then microfinance is a very, very significant growth value driver.
Sure.
It has worked elsewhere. It works in not only in the South Asian countries. If you take Taiwan and Thailand, very successful opportunities. But to me, you must get the system that
Sure.
will support the problem rather than. Now, bill says you cannot recover more than the value of the loan at any time during the loan period. Now, then you can never charge 220% interest if that is so. So, how will they police this bill? That is another issue.
We have about 5 minutes more, so I'd like to focus on what we can do. So, as a solution, what must be done with respect to this microfinance bill? Should there be wider consultation? Also, in terms of resolving the actual issues faced, how can those be rectified?
Certainly, the thing to go is to have the consultation, but more importantly, set up the infrastructure first. Where let's learn from what is most successful. Set the infrastructure, a cooperative or something who will handle it.
Right.
Where the people's interest is what drives the thing. Let the microfinance institutions give or other financing, things like World Bank and others, to give funds to these units who will then distribute it, but where they will do the servicing and support. So I would say the way to go forward is to prepare a structure that will work. And then some of these NGOs say they have a similar structure and that they are working. Probably they are. But I know it works in the northern province for sure, because I've seen it with about at least 3 industries.
Mr. Jayaratne, why is it that we aren't taught financial management, financial literacy in schools? Is it to keep us poor, keep us dependent, keep us subservient? Because when you keep a man poor, he won't have the energy to question the powers that be. He'll just want a loaf of bread, not rights.
Well, if you look at the country's situation too, we don't seem to be, as a country, we don't seem to know how to manage our money as the economic crisis that we got into. So I think by nature we are a set of traders. We want to buy something, sell something, but not use money to make money, to distribute money, to encourage others to join not only the pool of money, but larger number of people to grow at a faster rate. Now, growth models that we are having in this country do not support that kind of issue. So I think education too is a big issue. And you can see that with some of the, I mean, not with this microfinance. You see large companies which have been very badly run and going down, and shareholders getting into. That again is inability to manage money. Today, another big area is the NPLs of all the banks, which means they are also lending. Not why are we talking about microfinance? The large NPLs which require capitalization, we've seen all what the IMF has brought out, shows that they are just giving for security. Security-based lending is what we have, not cash flow-based lending. So we don't teach people how to manage cash. And give you one story which is worth to end. I know a person who was a bicycle cleaner, who became one of the richest men of this country, became a bus magnate. He had a principle. He said every day what he earned, he would put into equal 5 tins. One tin was to meet the needs of the next day's petrol and whatever for his bus. The next one was to provide for the salaries and wages and service and that. The third one was in the case of a repair, big repair, to saving, he keep it out. The fourth one was for his family, and the fifth one was a contingency which he was going to build by his next bus. So that is depreciation. Now that poor boy knew what depreciation was, he knew what revenue costs were, what capital costs were. That's the theory. So that this is nothing that is not a technology that we can't teach. Most of I'm sure most of this, the cases of rich who have become from, risen from their very good Mudalalis who all of us know, I'm sure they all practice good management of cash.
Absolutely. Just before wrapping up, is there something that we can do to educate the vulnerable and marginalized groups who can get duped by these loan sharks, by these microfinance companies? I mean, it can be something as simple as a social media post saying beware of loan sharks or something very...
Yeah, they educate them on the methods of calculating and finding the real...
Newsfirst, main sponsor.
Study in Australia with Edlocate. Visit us on